Welcome back to part 3 of this beginner Tableau tutorial series. For this video, we are going to learn how to build a line graph, which is maybe, I don't know, one of my favorite graphs. I like them. I think they're cool. It's definitely one you're going to use a lot as an analyst. All right, so if you're already signed into Tableau Public, go ahead and just click on the most recent workbook that you have. If you aren't, you can always click Open from Tableau Public. And here we're back to our amazing bar graph and our amazing table. So now we're going to build 2 different line graphs. So I'm going to do line graph 1. I'm going to create another sheet, double click, call this line graph 2. For line graph 1, I'm going to double click on the title. I want to know how donut sales have changed over time. For line graph 2, I want to know how company-wide sales have changed over time. Okay. So those are the 2 line graphs we are going to build today. Line graphs can be a little tricky, especially if you are doing something like seeing how something changes over time, because it requires a date field. So if I was just going to kind of use our fields as is, I know I would need donut type. So if I double click on that, I would need sales, I would need month and year. Ah! Horrible, right? Tableau is trying to do its best with the, let's see, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4 variables that I'm going to need in order to understand how sales for chocolate glazed and old-fashioned donuts have changed throughout the years and months. What's happening currently if I take off donut type and sales and leave these 2 on? Doesn't really matter where I put them. Oopsies, Control Z. There we go. Doesn't really matter where I put them. We can see pretty easily that the year and month are separate, right? No matter where I put these, side by side, above each other, they're 2 separate variables. Okay. And one is a string variable, and one is an integer. Neither are date fields. So we need to convert this into a date field, a combined date field, so that I can see throughout the years and months on the same axes how those donut sales have changed over time. Okay. This is going to be slightly more advanced than what you might be used to, but, whoopsies, oftentimes date fields especially come in a way that Tableau can't use robustly. So you need to create a new field that does so. So you're just going to follow these steps. The more you work with Tableau, the more you'll get used to changing data types. In this case, based on the format, it's not super straightforward. To create a date field, we need to combine these 2. We need to combine year and month and change it from a string and a number into a date data type. To do that, go to your sidebar, click the downward arrow, and click Create Calculated Field. Here is where Tableau gets closest to coding. If that scares you, don't let it. It's very similar to Microsoft Excel and its formulas like equal, sum, and etc. Over here, Tableau gives you the list of all of the formulas, which it calls functions, that you can use. Where we need to go is into the date formulas. So it's nice that it kind of categorizes them for you. So go ahead and click on that. And what we are eventually going to use is this function called date parse. And what this does is it takes a specific format that you enter, and it looks at a string, a single string value, and it converts it to a date data type. Okay, that's a lot, but I'm gonna walk you through exactly what we need. Okay, so I'm gonna rename this calculation 1 to date. Let's call this date calculation. Why not? Let's get crazy. So if I type in date, I can click on date parse as a function. Now, Tableau is great. It gives you hints as to what you need. So the first step is to input a format. And that format is going to be like what our date field sort of looks like when we use it later on. That is a horrible description. But basically what I want is, what I'm interested in is just month and year. So I'm going to put a quotation mark. I'm going to put, let's do 4 M's. Let's do 4 Y's and quotation mark, comma. So that's the format I wanted in. I wanted to pump out month and year, okay? I actually don't like the period. Let's get rid of that period and just put a space. I think that's gonna look better. So now it's looking for a string value. And it's gonna look at that field, that string field, and it's gonna convert it into a date field. Now I only have one string field so far. I just have month. So if I were to put this in there and hit OK, and then click and drag this to rows, let's do that again. Let's just double click it. It's got nothing, right? Because I just have my month. I don't have a year, so it's not complete yet. Okay. So I need to get year in there, but currently my year is an integer, so I can't put it in there, right? If I were to try, I would get an error message. Date parse is being called with a string integer, right? Doesn't work. So I need both my month and my year to be a string. Let's put month back in there. Oops, wrong one, my bad. Let's click and drag this guy and delete that extra parentheses. Okay, let's hit OK. So we're kind of back to where we were. So I need to convert this into a categorical variable. What I like to do is I never like to really just change the raw data. I like to make a copy of the raw data and change that copy. Go ahead and hover over year, right click, and we're gonna hit duplicate. There it is at the top. So now we have our copy. Now what we can do is we can change this to a discrete variable, but it's still a number. It's blue, that's good. We want it to be blue, but it's still a number. So what I'm gonna click now is that number variable and click string. Ta-da! We have now changed our year from a measure to a dimension. So now I can come back to my date calculation, click edit. I have my date parse, month and year. I have my month. I need to now add my year. I'm going to click and drag year copy and hit OK. All right, and there we go. We've made our date calculation. So let's go ahead and double click. Wait a minute, what's going on? Where is it? Why does it look so weird? Well, we actually missed a step, and this can be kind of annoying. So let's go back into our calculation by clicking on date calculation, downward arrow, and clicking edit. What is happening is we have asked Tableau to pump out the format as a month with a space in between the year. But we have not actually included that in our string variable. What we've actually done is we've put month right next to year. So we actually need to add a space. So after the plus, you're going to do quotation mark, space bar, quotation mark, and then put a plus. So now what's happening is this month is going to have a space in between the year, just like what we designated for our date parse function. Okay, it's so annoying, but you just got to make sure that every little thing in this string is going to match. And look, right when I change that, it's already looking 10 times better. I'm finally seeing all of the years in my data, 2019 to 2023. So we're off to a good start. We finally have our date field. But I don't want to just see year. I also want to see month. So if I were to click on this plus sign, it can take me now to quarters, which is awesome. But I don't want to just do quarters. I want to do months. So I click on the plus sign and then I see months. But this is too much. I don't need to see all this stuff. So I'm going to Control Z, Control Z. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the columns pill, click on the downward arrow, scroll down to where it says May 2015. Okay. I'm looking for basically the outputs that I want, right? I don't just want the year. I don't just want the month. I want the month and year. Aha! Here we go. Now we're seeing January 2019, February, on and on and on, all the way to December 2023. We have finally created the date variable that we need to make a line graph. If I were to double click on sales, wow, amazing. Again, magic. Tableau automatically knows that, hey, you're looking for a line graph because on your x-axis, you have a date field. This line graph is the total number of sales from 2019 to 2023 for all donut types and all companies. We don't want that. There's another step we need to take, right? I want to know the total sales for every donut type. In order to do that, I'm going to click on my donut type pill, and weirdly, I'm actually going to drag it to the color marks card. That's how you can create a multiple line chart using the same measure. You have to basically separate those lines by using a color difference. And there you have it. There is our line graph number 1. To build line graph number 2, I basically want to build the exact same thing, but instead of having donut type, I want to have company, right? Because I'm interested in the total sales by company. You could go here and rebuild everything that we just built here. That would probably be good practice for you. So if you want to do that, go ahead. Or the easier and more efficient way, which I always try to take, is to actually right click on line graph 1 and hit duplicate. Then all you need to do is click and drag company over your donut type pill in the color marks card. And it will automatically change your line graph so that it's looking at Dunkin' Donuts, Krispy Kreme, and Top Pot instead of chocolate glazed and old fashioned. Pretty freaking cool. So I'm actually going to delete this line graph too. And then I'm going to double click and I'm going to rename this. Duplicating is your friend. I highly recommend using that feature, again, by right clicking and hitting duplicate instead of rebuilding. It saves a lot of time if you are using similar values here. Okay. Now, line graphs are a great place to keep your tooltip on. Because if I'm interested in knowing, oh, look, there's kind of this weird dip here. What's going on, right? I can hover over with my mouse and see March 2022 Top Pot went down in sales. And I can even compare it to, August 2020 or the month before, right? So I actually want to leave my tooltip on because this is a case where it's helpful. It's helpful for the user to get that extra level of detail. Now we want to make sure that we change the name of this title since it was a duplicate to company sales over time and hit OK. Similar to our bar graph, the last thing we're going to do is sort of change how we label a line graph. Depending on our dashboard, it can be kind of annoying and tough to have to look for a legend, which is over here, to understand what's going on in our graph, right? So for a user, they'd be like, okay, this is red. That means old fashioned. This is orange. That means glazed, right? It can be kind of annoying. It can take an extra step. So I actually want to get rid of my legend. And I want to basically add my legend right at the end of my graph. So I want to be able to kind of put that identifier on the graph itself. To do that, you're going to click and drag donut type to label. And there you go. Now, another feature that can be useful is if you go ahead and click on that label marks card and you click on font and you change it from automatic to match mark color. Aha! Now it's changed the text from black to match the color of the line. And that's just yet another user-friendly, easy way for your audience to make that immediate association, right? Old Fashioned's on the top, chocolates in the middle, glazed is kind of on the bottom. So I'm going to do that for company. Click and drag company to label, click on label, then click font, match mark color. There you have it. We have created a table, a bar graph, a line chart for our donut sales, and a line chart for our company sales. I'm going to hide this legend. We don't need it anymore. Congratulations, you've made it through part 3 of this tutorial series. In part 4, we are going to start building a dashboard. Likely we're going to break that part up into 2 different sections, 2 20-minute videos, because there is a lot that we need to change in order to transform what we've just created into something that looks professional and pretty. All right, so don't forget to save, file save to your Tableau public page. And once you have done that, I will see you in the next video, part 4.